Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Sanctum, guys. My name is Jesse, and I'm the writer, director, and narrator for the Lost Codex episodes. And today, we're going to be watching Warbringers Azshara. Finally, we have been waiting for this third episode, this third installment of the Warbringers trilogy. Everyone sort of predicted that it would be played at Gamescom, and that there would be maybe an 8.1 announcement to go with it. No 8.1 announcement, just the Azshara video today. But considering she's going to be playing a role later on in the expansion, I thought it was appropriate that they saved this for last. So we're going to watch that video. Today, I am actually not joined by Jack due to a conflicting schedule and a little bit of a time issue. Jack is unable to make it today, so you're just gonna have to stare at this. This is all you're gonna have to deal with. But I'm gonna go into explicit detail about Azshara. And when Jack comes back for whenever the next podcast that he's on, we'll pick his thoughts on the Queen herself and everything that happens with her. So, without further ado, let's watch Warbringers Azshara. Ooh. Azshara looks amazing. Looked. Rip. Rip. What a goddess.
Let go.
Circle of stars.
No! I am queen. This is the empire I built.
It is over.
Damn.
People.
My queen, we loved you. You betrayed us.
This is my fault.
No! 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 This was not the deal I made!
Deal? I like deals.
Who are you? Show yourself! At once!
For 1,000 years, bound beneath these waves, I have watched you. I have tasted your essence.
You.
It won't be long now. Your death is near. Only I can sustain you. Let go. Serve me.
You? You are nothing.
Nothing.
Oh.
Before you walked this land, I ruled.
Magnificent.
Serve me, and we will rebuild my empire.
No.
No? You there! You will die!
A queen! Not a slave.
You've watched me for 1,000 years, so you know what I want. Take my people. With them, I will raise an army, conquer your enemies, build an empire as queen. Or let me die, and you will remain here, a prisoner. The god of nothing.
That smirk, though.
Arise, Azshara. Arise, my queen.
Oh. That was perfect. That was utter, absolute perfect. Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts. Give me a second to compose myself. Holy.
Oh, hello again. Or is this the first time we've met?
We are back. Just me. Let's talk about Azshara. That was the best one that they've done. I loved the Sylvanas one. Big shocking twist there. Shocking if you kind of knew what was happening. I got to see her backstory if you didn't know it. The Jaina song to me is probably one of the coolest things about Battle for Azeroth so far. I so excited for Jaina's story, but this is something new. Like we always knew N'Zoth and Azshara teamed up, but we didn't know what was said. We didn't know this was scary. Did anyone else jump? I jumped several times. Fish are scary. I'm never going swimming ever again. I have a whole bunch of notes here. I'm just going to go through them all. I'm used to having someone else, and I'm looking over here because that's where Jack usually sits. Or last week on the podcast, Shannon sat over there. But I'm by myself today. So here we go. Just going to start rambling here. The opening music was so this sort of like excitement just like kind of filled my chest. I was like, ooh, this is I love Night Elf music. Night Elf music, I mean, Blizzard always hits the music on the nose without question. But there's some music that you just hear and you're like, this is so perfect for the culture and setting that they're going with. And seeing Zinajari in its full glory with that music playing was just, I crave to see this in game now. We've seen Zinajari in Chronicle 1. The midnight blue sky and the glowing canals and the Well of Eternity and the bridges and all this stuff, but we've never seen it like that. And we have seen it in its full absolute glory. It looks like a metropolis of knowledge. If there was a place anywhere on Azeroth that coveted knowledge in the same way that the ancient Greeks, that Alexandria coveted knowledge, this is the place. And you could see a lot of Suramar-like features in the city. You could tell that the artists who did this looked at Suramar in game and changed it so that lore-wise, Suramar is the copy. You know, the elves who built Suramar looked at Zinajari and went, ooh, you know what? That's good. And they built their own version. You could definitely see the similarities between the two. The detail in the building shots, constellation designs on the rooftops, the astrolabs, which there's a lot of notes here I have. There's someone in the Lost Codex Discord. Her name is Ishura. And links below for links to all of her collections and stuff. We're going to have her on the podcast to talk about Highborn, because she is a Highborn scholar. And I shared notes with her when I was writing my feedback after I filmed my reaction. And she's the one who pointed out that the astrolabs that you see on the building, you know, we first saw those astrolabs in the Iron Forge, where all the relics are held. And when you examine the plaque, it says it's an astrolabe of Suramar. You know, these things that the Highborn are just using to use as instruments and tools for arcane study and the arcane symbols you see, the night sky constellations on the buildings. There's so much in just a very quick shot. It looks like the one place where the Night Elf Empire really flourished. Everything was in that one city. It looks like ancient Greece. I thought of the Overwatch map. Like, I crave to see this in game now. People are like, time travel expansions suck. No, they don't. And only reason I say that is because I want to go in time and see ancient Zinajari / Elundris. I want to see, oh man. And then of course, obviously it all gets destroyed. But what really struck me was how big the city was. And you can see the shoreline, which is interesting. There's two things I found interesting about the city shot. Was it was shown during the day, which for night elves, that's when they're at their weakest, right? Like, every image we've seen of night elf society has been mostly at night or at dusk. This was shown in blatant daytime when the Kaldori are at their weakest, which is fitting considering the giant apocalypse of a tsunami that's about to hit. The other thing was the shoreline. How, at first I thought, oh, like that's a neat ocean. And I was like, wait, there's no ocean nearby. And then you realize, holy crap, that's the Well of Eternity. And the well's been shown in different sizes. Ignore what's in game. Ignore the 5-man dungeon. That is A, outdated. B, in game doesn't even remotely show the scale of anything. The Chronicle artwork is interesting because it implies that there's, you see that little pool in the middle with a glow, and it implies, oh, that's the Well of Eternity. But how the hell was Sargeras supposed to come crawling out of that? And a theory that came to mind was, what if Zinajari, what if Elundris was built on the shores? We know it was built on the shores of the well, but it didn't cover the whole well. It kind of overlapped like a boardwalk onto the massive, huge lake that is the Well of Eternity. And so what you see in the Chronicle artwork is maybe a focal point, a center city block where the Well of Eternity waters are accessible. But beyond the city, there's just the rest of the well. And that massive lake is what they turn into or try to turn into the portal for Sargeras. That's where the tsunami comes from. That's kind of my interpretation. You know, we see it as a little pool in the 5 men. We see it as a relatively in the War of the Ancients book, and now in this chronicler artwork, it's back to being a little pool. So different interpretations, different artistic design choices, but I think it's safe to say that the well was massive. That's where Y'Shaarj was ripped out from. So keep in mind that it likely went on for a good long distance, and the Zinajari capital was built on the shores of maybe just one little corner. We don't really know, but it's cool because it looks like an ocean, but it's not an ocean. Save us. You know, I thought it was so important to see the Kaldorei people, you know, begging their queen for them to save them. And as much as Azshara is a villain, we have to remember that she is absolutely beloved by her people. The Kaldorei people worship her like a goddess. Everyone was entranced by her beauty, the physical, the magical arcane aura that just shone off of her. Everyone was just enraptured by everything about Azshara, and her people are scared now. They're in their last moments and they are saying, save us, save us. And the horror and the fear is there on their faces. And for a second, you're kind of, the desperation on her faces, you're like, does she care? And what's interesting is, no, she doesn't care, but part of her does. And we see, especially in the War of the Ancients book, she's okay with the lowborn Kaldorei being butchered and slaughtered by fell guards and eaten by fell hunters. It was all for the greater good. It was all to bring Sargeras into the world, to create this perfect world. And anyone who wasn't highborn was whatever, get out of here. So she's okay with the slaughter of her people so long as it served her purpose. But what if she cares now? What if at this point in time, you know, having Sargeras and his minions kill her people, no big deal. It serves a purpose. This, however, is different. This is her failing. This is not what's supposed to happen. And so this is not leading to the perfect world she imagined. And that fear of, my people are dying not because Sargeras is going to make this world perfect, but because Sargeras' vision isn't happening. My vision isn't happening. This is impossible. And what's important to realize is, even up until her final moment, Azshara has always been written or depicted as in denial about what's happening. And we'll get to that later on. We see the fish slapping around on the water. I saw on Twitter he's not being called Slappy Boy. So there's the fish gasping for air. And what's interesting to note is, and I know what the fish represents. We'll get there. I'm just trying to build to it before someone says, is the fish Jaina's dad's boat? Yes, the fish is Jaina's dad's boat. So the fish is slapping around, and it's out of its element. It's weak. It's gasping for air, and Azshara is holding her ground. And we see the fish's gasping lines up with Azshara's deep breath. And as the camera zooms in on the fish, we see that circle. And first thing that came to mind, pretty sure I said it, was the circle of stars, which was interesting. The circle and the eye are a theme that's just everywhere in the cinematic. The voices whisper, let go. And she goes, no, this is the empire I built. And the voice says, this is over. And it's interesting because it's a female voice. So part of me wondered, was that her people speaking? Was that her own voice saying that? Like the fish using her voice to try and convince her to let go? Because the fish later on says to her physically, like, or out loud, let go, but it's not the female voice. The shield finally gives way, and it's important. I don't think people who don't really know Azshara's story don't realize how powerful Queen Azshara is. They're like, she's just Queen of the Naga. Big whoop. I've killed so many Naga in my days. I've killed so many night elves, night elf sorcerers, big deal. She's not like a Kill Jaden. She's not like a big deal. But she is. Queen Azshara is more powerful than Archimonde and Manaroth. I believe Manaroth goes to crush her skull in War of the Ancients, and he stops. There's a force there that's only surpassed. I think he says it. The only one who surpasses it is Archimonde himself. and then their lord Sargeras. I will always say that the Eridar as a race are magically superior than over the Kaldori, but I will also argue that Azshara is more powerful than any Eridar, with the exception, I would say, of Kil'jaeden. I'd say Kil'jaeden and Azshara would have a very interesting fight. Azshara is this absolute goddess of the arcane, to the point where Manaroth was afraid of her. Manaroth was afraid to do something. So think about it. The Well of Eternity, this massive, powerful well that is literally filled with, it was once a wound where Y'Shaarj was ripped from the earth. Azeroth's blood bubbled up. It's a physical font of just straight raw energy. That water is now creating a tsunami, and her city is literally crumbling away, and she is withholding not only just the power of a tsunami with arcane, but a tsunami made of the Well of Eternity. That's pretty powerful. That is Azshara is the number one mage on Azeroth right now. Easily more powerful than Khadgar, Jaina, Azshara, and that's just like Night Elf Azshara too. So remember that. It gives away and the city sinks. We know that happens. The water's crashing down around her, bodies everywhere. And something that really struck out to me was when the whispers start to come and you hear, "You betrayed us, you destroyed everything." And I'll just say that the female voice that says, "You betrayed us, you destroyed everything," I am 99% certain that is Sally Safiati, the voice behind First Arcanist Thalyssra. And if you don't believe me, and I don't believe it's Thalyssra herself saying it, but go and listen to the Suramar cinematic, where Thalyssra gives us the backstory on Suramar. Get to the part with Azshara, where she's like waving at the Well of Eternity, and listen. Our queen betrayed us, and then listen to the same line. "You betrayed us." It's identical, which is really interesting. Are these actual voices? Are these her own thoughts? Are these her own doubts that are manifesting? Or is someone else using these whispers against her? Did someone else try to use her own voice against her, and now they're using other voices against her? Whispers are the number one weapon of a certain evil force. So begs the question, and that ties right into the next part, the dead floating around her. It's curious that their eyes glow, by the way, that their eyes were glowing blue. None of the elves at the beginning had glowing eyes. Azshara had golden eyes, and you see the gold really vibrant, really, really bright as she's holding against the well. The wave. And as she's sinking, the glow in her eyes is still present. And I found it's interesting when her crown fell off, her crown started to float away as if her crown drifts away just as her empire slipped away. She's no longer a queen. Her crown has fallen off and she is falling into the depths. And the eye glow with the dead elves, I'm kind of jumping all over here. The eye glow with the dead elves really caught my attention because Jack and I really focused on that with Sylvanas and the Highborn. Their eyes are bright blue when they turn undead, when they become undead. And as she's left alone in the dark, as she screams, as the undead attack her, and "This is not the deal I made," and then it goes silent, her eyes lose the glow. They're gone. Her crown is gone. The glow is gone. It's almost like her power's gone. She's alone, completely in the dark. And I will say, I don't think that the dead attacking her was real. I think it's another Jaina symbolism. I think that it was visions around her, because the Naga have never been described as highborn who died, who were then resurrected as Naga. And they turned to skeletons really fast. So it was nightmare fuel. It was nightmare material to use against her, to use the whispers and the doubts and her failure and manifest them in the forms of these dead elves. So I don't think that she was physically attacked. I think it's a representation of her failure. She's, the crown falling off, the glow vanishing from her eyes. She's lost everything. She's never cared for her people. She's only cared about the vision. But that vision meant everything. And because that vision didn't happen, her people suffered and died for it. And that's where I think it's interesting is she didn't suddenly just start caring in the end, because she was cool with the Legion killing her people. It was the promise she made didn't happen. Both she was betrayed because the promise didn't happen, but her people were also betrayed. So the crown's gone, the glow's gone. This is not the deal I made. She screams and she's in the dark. And then the first jump scare happens, just a little blur in the background. Then you hear a voice, deals. I like deals. Curious, who have we just met that likes deals? Who do we have just met that likes some bargains on Zandalar? There's someone, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into and Slappy Boy here. I don't know. There's not enough it's enough to talk about, but not enough to go all in on. So we'll push that thought to the side for now. Then the big jump scare happens when N'Zoth jumps out as a fish. And what's interesting is you see 5 glowing eyes, but 2 of them kind of like manifest in the form of a fish, and the other 3 kind of vanish into like smoky entrails in the back, or smoky wisps in the back. Obviously, the fish at the beginning, the voice let go, that was N'Zoth. And the parallel is there again. N'Zoth was in fish form, out of his element, out of the water, on the ground, gasping for air. She was there holding her ground, using her power. Now the roles are reversed. Now she's in N'Zoth's realm. Now she is without power. No crown, no eye glow, nothing. She's in the dark. And N'Zoth makes a deal with her, and he tells her, your time is running out. Tick-tock. And she's still holding on. You know, let go, she says. Let go. And I thought, like, let go of what? To her control, to her obsession. And remember, I said this earlier, Azshara, up until her final moments, she did not believe that Sargeras's vision would not happen. She did not believe that the world wouldn't be made in his image, in her image. And she could not believe that she failed her people. So he's saying, let go of all of that. Her crown is gone. The glow is gone. And she still boldly stands defiant. She is like who are you? You're nothing. And he's like, really? Then we see the eyes light up, and N'Zoth's sort of mortal voice changes. I am a god. Before you walked this land, I ruled. And we see the Black Empire, very reminiscent of Chronicle 1's Cthulhu shot, where we saw Cthulhu looming in the background. And at first it was like, is that Cthulhu? But, you know, each of the old gods had that sort of same temple city around their giant husk and form. And the music was just heart thumping. And you can actually hear the heartbeat going in the background of like the ambience. And what's really curious, and I think this is important to talk about maybe on the podcast, he wasn't the only one who ruled. We know that. There was 4 of them. There was 5, depending on how much you want to look into that. N'Zoth himself, Cthulhu, Y'Shaarj, and Yogg-Saron. And what's even more interesting is N'Zoth's always been described as the weakest of the old gods. Y'Shaarj was taken out first, caused total horrible damage to the planet. Cthulhu is locked away. N'Zoth is locked away, rather was actually the one who caused a lot of problems in the war against the Titan Keepers. N'Zoth's dismantling and imprisonment happens like in a couple lines in Chronicle. It's very quick. And Xal'atath mentions, when you go to the Broken Shore, she mentions this is the site where the god of the deep and the god of 7 heads had a big battle. This is the site of the Battle of C'Tanth. Now, we don't know what the Battle of C'Tanth is. We don't know what C'Tanth is. The gore, she says, the carnage that happened in that war, you know, nothing's been seen like it until the war against the Legion. And N'Zoth lost that battle. Y'Shaarj won. But then she says, it's funny how that worked out for him, how N'Zoth, the weakest of the old gods, the one who lost this battle against Y'Shaarj, it's funny how that worked out for him, how he's the only one left. And I'm curious if that is N'Zoth's weakness. Is that all part of the plan? He lost the battle with C'Tanth, so Y'Shaarj rule the massive area. If you look at the control of each of the old gods in Chronicle, Y'Shaaraj's territory is massive. The old god of Pandaria was more powerful than Thune, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth, and that's why Aman'Thul had to interfere. But was that part of N'Zoth's plan? Let Y'Shaaraj inflate himself. Let him become this huge god. Let the focus go on him while he's the little weak one. And he's the only one left. He's been biding his time. And honestly, N'Zoth's constant loss and him being the weakest has paid off the most. It didn't pay off for Yogg-Saron. It didn't pay off for Cthulhu. It paid off for N'Zoth. And it's interesting. I'm really curious to see how that'll play out in the future. She says magnificent. She's looking upon N'Zoth himself. Now, she's seen the might of Sargeras. She's seen Sargeras' armies, but has she seen Sargeras in person? Has she seen what a Titan looks like compared to what an old god looks like? She sees this massive empire, not from a beyond Azeroth, not from out in the stars, but here on Azeroth. This being had this massive empire for her. And to her, it's, she's just traded herself from one god to another. But it's interesting because we don't know how much Sargeras' vision that he showed Kil'jaeden a vision. He showed Archimonde a vision as well. So how much of that vision did she see? And N'Zoth's just showing her what was. Sargeras showed her a vision of his planned future. Here's my army, here's what I planned. But N'Zoth's like, here's what I had. This is what I once had. She's like, holy shit. That's crazy. Then we get to see real Azshara. Like the Azshara that I've been waiting for. And she denies him. She says no. And N'Zoth's like, you're dumb. And he goes to kill her. He's like, we're done here. We're done. And she says, no, I will not serve you as a slave, but as a queen. And it's curious, the shot with the tentacles and she's floating outside the obelisk. She is just outside his reach. And you could argue, he could have reached her. He could have grabbed her. That's true. It's not like she was out of range. But it's curious just the placement. She is just outside his reach. And his tentacles, they're really close to her. And as she's talking, you can hear him growling. And all the eyes on the obelisks, you get the feeling that even though you can't see him watching, you know she's watching. And it's this really, it's this creepiness. Back to the fish with the red eyes. And the tentacles start to pull back. She's talking and you can hear him growling. He's not happy. No one talks like this to him. She did. He's not cool. But he's listening. And he's pulling back his tentacles. And she says, make me queen and I'll rebuild your empire. I'll give you an army. I will conquer your enemies. Or you can stay here locked away. And this is ancient times, remember. So not ancient as in it's recent when he was imprisoned, but it also, we're now 10,000 years later. So he's still very much bound within his prison. So his options are limited here. And he makes her an offer. She counters the offer and calls his bluff, saying, you know what? No, I don't need you. You need me. And he gets really angry. And he just pulls back. He just screams, and then the scene goes dark. And because she called him on his bluff. Who calls an old god on their bluff? She did. Remember, she is the one who stares down Manaroth. She who dismisses Archimonde. And she who makes bargains and claims before N'Zoth. That is the Azshara that I've been really wanting to see. This cocky Azshara. And so we see Azshara back in the darkness. Goes from fiery red and orange to almost nothing. And she has this grin. She's bold and defiant as ever. She's waiting. She's waiting for N'Zoth to buckle. And she's alone. And then she looks around and the air bubbles come out. And the glow, interestingly, comes back to her eyes. And then more air bubbles come out. She starts to panic. And I thought it was interesting because now N'Zoth, is N'Zoth returning the favor? Is N'Zoth offers, she's bold and makes a counter offer and stands her ground, and he makes her panic. He does nothing for just a second. She thinks she's alone in the darkness. She starts to panic. Her eyes go wide. The air bubbles. She realizes she's drowning. Desperation kicks in, and then N'Zoth says, I got you. And that's when he grabs her. And I thought it was N'Zoth agrees to Azshara's terms, but not before creating that second of panic, that second of doubt of maybe I won't take you up on your offer, and maybe I'll watch you drown here slowly. And Azshara is not ready to die. Azshara everything. So N'Zoth calls her on her bluff. She's dead, and that goes against everything Azshara wants. And N'Zoth calls her just for a second. And then the transformation happens. And it looks painful. Fingers elongating, tentacles, everything. She's screaming in the darkness. And then we see I thought it was probably one of the coolest shots. It's almost like an embryonic shot of Azshara. We see her floating in the dark, and then the eye opens, and it's almost like an egg. She's a little mark in this massive, massive eye of N'Zoth. And then the pupil swivels around, focuses on her, and she's reborn. She's reborn within the vision of, literally with N'Zoth's vision. She gets eyes on her forehead. She does a full costume change. She's like, whatever. N'Zoth says, here's some really cool transmog. She puts it on. And we see all these Naga around her. And he says, arise, Azshara. Rise, my queen. And it's interesting that N'Zoth calls her my queen. And now there's a lot of people who theorize that, we're all picturing we're going to face N'Zoth event. Maybe this expansion, maybe next expansion. And people have thought, what would be cool if Azshara betrays N'Zoth? And people always say, like, who's more powerful, Azshara or N'Zoth? And I don't think you can compare them. Because N'Zoth is this impossibly powerful, nightmare, void-infused, incomprehensible enigma. Azshara is still mortal. Kil'jaeden is on the mortal scale. Archimonde is on the mortal scale. And what I mean by that is they are just races empowered. So Kil'jaeden was a demon lord, but he was just an Eridar empowered by Sargeras, right? Sargeras is on a whole nother level. N'Zoth and the old gods are on whole other levels. Naru's are on whole other levels. But people like Kil'jaeden, Manaroth, Azshara, Archimonde, they're still just mortal races. But Azshara is more powerful than any magic user on Azeroth right now, I would say. And it'd be interesting to see Azshara take full control, maybe betray N'Zoth or control N'Zoth. But I don't think so. I think N'Zoth is still in control. Maybe Azshara has other plans. I'm really curious to see where they go with this. But I found it interesting. N'Zoth makes his offer. Azshara counters the offer boldly, and N'Zoth agrees, but not before making her hurt a little bit. Not before saying, I could let you drown, but I'm not going to. And there's so much. This Warbringers was probably the best one they've done. As I said at the beginning, I love the Sylvanas. Jaina one has a special place in my heart, but this one, the music, the drums when she's transforming, when you see the Black Empire, I really want to see the ancient Black Empire in Azeroth. I want to see what that looked like way back. I want to see Zinajari. There's so much I want to talk about. And I have so many thoughts that I want to bring into this, but this is just a very quick analysis, deep dive, no pun intended, of Warbringers Azshara. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this gush, this sort of breakdown of things that I saw, that I noticed, that I thought. Obviously, I'm going to miss some stuff. Obviously, there's going to be little things that I missed. So please point them out. Let me know what you guys thought. Do you think who's in control here? Do you think, that Azshara and N'Zoth are on equal terms? Do you think that there's something else that we're going to have a little bit of a Kil'jaeden Sargeras thing where Kil'jaeden starts to doubt his master? Where do you think we're going to go with this? And what do you think Azshara's storyline is going to be in Battle for Azeroth? I hope we don't even kill her in Battle for Azeroth. I think Azshara deserves way more than just a content patch boss. Kil'jaeden, unfortunately, got a little bit screwed in Legion. He only appears in 7.2 for about 10 minutes, and then we kill him. Now, Kil'jaeden does have a ton of build-up before, but I felt that we didn't see him a lot in Legion. His death was amazing. It was a great cinematic. there was no build-up in-game. And I really want the Azshara build-up to be more in our face. It was there in Azuna, there in Stormsong. It's there in little spots. But she's not in our face yet. And I really want that to happen. I really want her to say, hey, I'm here. And I'm probably the biggest threat to everyone on the planet right now, next to N'Zoth. So, guys, thank you so much for joining this special episode of Beyond the Sanctum Azshara Analysis. My name is Jesse, and you can tune into our weekly podcast. It goes up Sundays, but we're actually starting to live stream it on Twitch, twitch.tv/LostCodexLore. Myself and another guest. It could be Jack. I'm pointing, but Jack's not actually over here. It could be Shannon. Shannon was on last week. Issei, one of the Lost Codex artists. There's so many people we can bring on, some people I want to talk about. So tune in. We likely put the stream, like the live stream, on Friday nights or Saturday nights. Just watch for our Twitter when we're going live. And if you missed the actual live stream, you can tune into watch the Twitch VOD afterwards. If you want to join our Lost Codex Discord community, links are down below in the description. You can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/LostCodex, Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to support what we do, we have a Patreon account, patreon.com/TheLostCodex, where we have all sorts of rewards, special access, stuff like that. So please check out all of the links down in the description below. And if you want to read up some really cool Highborn lore and Highborn headcanons and just a library of really cool Highborn lore, I'm going to put a link to Ishura's page down below. She's in our Discord. Come ask her questions about the Highborn. She is our Highborn resident lore master. So come check everything out in the Discord. Come hang out. We're cool. We're a cool bunch. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you this week in the podcast or the next time we do an analysis video. I don't know, sometime soon. Okay, goodbye.